Dragon Age the MMO will be at E3 2016. Well, that's one of my bold predictions. As always, Zach Sharpes is here with me to discuss them.
How you doing? This is gonna be an
Yeah,
interesting one. You
this
guys,
is
you
going
guys
to
are
be
gonna.
totally interesting. So we discussed like the bold predictions in short on his channel. We discussed like the whole EA press conference there, but now we're going in depth in one of those bold predictions I made this time. Dragon Age. So we have heard some rumors about the game being showed at E3. I will go to the Twitter again, go to Mark Dara, hopefully I pronounced that right. He's the executive producer of the Dragon Age franchise, and he suddenly tweeted a short video of him opening a book with a logo of like the old or like the latest DLC for Dragon Age Inquisition, the Trespasser DLC to be exact. And he's opening that. I will link this video in the description below. But what it says is internal use only, property of BioWare and EA. And the tweet says, "Oh, what's this? Oh, sorry." So it's like a super tease to what's to come. And yeah, the biggest convention that's coming up where you show stuff is E3. So we will probably see something of Dragon Age. And what I think it will be is a Dragon Age MMO. So we discussed it a little bit. That Dragon Age Inquisition was like, it was like Dragon Age 2 was more an action game, where Dragon Age 1 was like more traditional single-player RPG where you really made choices and it had an impact on the world. Obviously, that never escaped the Dragon Age franchise, but it was more clear, the story element in the first one. And in Inquisition, like you said, you were picking up notes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the fact. First off, I just want to say I first mentioned and thought it was really bold to say that there would be a Dragon Age game at E3, and it's like, it's gonna be a hybrid MMO. It's just gonna be an MMO. I'm like, I kind of wanted to say that too, but I was gonna not go that bold. But it really comes down to the fact that Dragon Age Inquisition, to a lot of people who loved Origins, it felt like an MMO, but a single player MMO. And the reason why it did is because it really had no real side quests, right? They were all notes that you just picked up off the ground and you went and did your thing. For some people, they called it a herb picking simulator, where you picked up a lot of herbs and you just kept trying to ping and trying to find something more interesting than herbs, but you just kept finding more and more plants to pick up, and that annoyed a lot of people. And a lot of those aspects are more MMO aspects, and I think that if you were to sort of gauge a lot of people who are looking for a new MMO, most people are looking for a more fantasy style MMO. We already have games like Star Citizen that is going to be coming out eventually, and that's going to sort of fulfill the sci-fi environment as far as people looking for a very big, massive sci-fi experience. And I think that if EA were to do anything, since they've already done a sci-fi MMO with Star Wars The Old Republic, I think it's more likely that it would be a Dragon Age MMO. And it may not be a full-on MMO, but it would more than likely be at least a hybrid MMO. They see the success of The Division, they saw the success of Destiny. Both games review-wise and, critically were not really that great. They were very bland in a lot of different cases. And so I think EA is like, well, we can make a Dragon Age title that's maybe better than those, and even if it's not and it shows up being bland, it looks like at least will sell, right? So let's go ahead and release it. And I think that would play really well. I think a lot of their stockholders would be very happy. EA, as you guys may not know, is a purely performance stock. They don't have dividends, so they have to come out with a lot of titles really quickly. They got to push their growth to its limits all the time in order to maintain their stockholders and make them happy. So I think that this is a possible bombshell that they could announce at E3, and it's possible.
So of course Dragon Age Inquisition also had like a multiplayer mode, so they've been experimenting with apart from the single player DLC, giving a long tail to the Dragon Age series for people that maybe finish the single player, they just go on to the multiplayer. Well, I didn't like the multiplayer that much because it was like no brain kill and there were not a lot of skills and the enemies were not interesting at all, but they were experimenting with stuff, and they might like make a combination of that where you run those dungeons, but It's also in an open world, and it's also like the things you come to expect from a Dragon Age game. Well, I think, like we said already, Inquisition was a little MMO, but do you remember that Shadow Realms game they also like canceled, BioWare?
Yeah. I remember reporting on that a while back on Free to Play Weekly.
Yeah. So that was also like they were looking into doing MMO stuff, but they were just not, going into the right direction. And then maybe they thought, okay, why not bring a big franchise? And if you look at Destiny, it's a sci-fi shooter game. The Division is a third-person shooter game. Now, there isn't really a RPG style MMO with a known franchise on the console yet. And MMOs on consoles, like you said already, are super big. So they are really looking into this. And also, it would make total sense to show it at this year's E3, because normally you would say, well, they have Mass Effect, so why show a Dragon Age alongside a Mass Effect game? It doesn't make sense, because it's probably for the same audiences. It's like the same game. Of course, you can argue with that, but it's like a single-player RPG in a sci-fi setting versus single-player RPG in a fantasy setting. And this could totally live alongside that, since it will be a totally different game. It will be super interesting. I think the tweet says something that we can expect something. EA, like you said, is always looking at the big thing. I always take the comparison with Star Wars: The Old Republic is a good comparison. I mean, they saw the success of World of Warcraft. They thought, we have to make an MMO as well with a big franchise. Then they made Dawngate, that MOBA, obviously as a reaction on League of Legends, but sadly that was cancelled. Well, sadly, not that a lot of people were interested in that title, but still, they're always looking at stuff that's doing really well and trying to make something that is for those types of players. And this generation, it's really the console MMO that is doing really well. So obviously EA wants to make something. So hopefully we will see it at E3. Is there anything you want to add to this? Or
yeah, certainly. I mean, it really comes down to the fact that if you look at Dragon Age as an entire franchise, can you really say that there's any sort of solidarity between all of their games? There really isn't. They're all different in a lot of different ways.
Good points.
And so you look at Dragon Age Origins, that was exactly what every RPG person wanted. It was a very fantastic RPG, much more sort of micromanaging of your units, ensuring that you had the best possible positioning at all times. Very in-depth, amazing story with a lot of choices that you were able to make that were extremely meaningful. And then Dragon Age 2 was more action-oriented and really went away from that really in-depth sort of formula that they had with Origins. It pissed off a lot of people in that regard, and then when it came to the story was also not that great at all either. So they sort of went completely away from Origins, and then with Inquisition they tried to reel a little bit of it back, but they really weren't able to, because it still didn't feel like Origins at all. Because absolutely. It was so simplistic. It lacked the depth of Origins. It maybe had some of the things that Origins did, like the sort of more turn-based oriented style combat where you sort of wanted to go in that overhead perspective and micromanage your units, but it really wasn't as in-depth in that regard even, and wasn't really even that difficult in that regard either. The story wasn't that great. It was all right, but I think that if you look at it from a Game of the Year perspective, I think the reason why it got a lot of Game of the Years was because that year really wasn't that jam-packed full of good games anyhow. And so when it really comes down to it, they've experimented a lot with this franchise, so it's not that surprising that they would experiment even further. And so I think that this would be a good way for them to continue pushing the hybrid MMO genre forward. And what I mean by hybrid MMOs is they're not full on massively multiplayer, but they're sort of instanced with maybe about 15 to 20 people in one area at one time. And I think that that would make perfect sense for Dragon Age. I think that they see the success of Star Wars: The Old Republic. A lot of people look at its past and think that it was a flop from the beginning, and it's still a flop now. But if you look at their financials, that game is making hand over fist, even comparable to Destiny. And so I think they see that. I think that they know that there is a demand for a fantasy hybrid MMO on the consoles, and I think that they might fulfill it very shortly.
Yes, it will be super interesting to watch how they will unveil this, if they will unveil this, of course. But yeah, they will have a very interesting E3 press conference indeed. And like I said already at the beginning of this video, you can watch our predictions for that full press conference. Yeah, via a link I put in the description below, and it will lead you to Zach's channel where we discuss that in depth. Thanks a lot, Zach, for discussing this very interesting, but yeah, more likely the more we talk about it, bold prediction, I think.
Yeah, certainly. It was great to be on.
Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Subscribe for more E3 predictions. There are a lot of them, and of course, yeah, Zach has also some E3 predictions where, like I said, we discussed the press conference, and he also does a ton of other stuff, so totally check that out. Thanks a lot for watching. I will speak to you next time. Goodbye.
Later.